Good evening. For Telesur, I'm Cody Weddle in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin tonight in Lima, Peru. At the third day of the United Nations climate talks, officials at the summit have announced that the Green Climate Fund will begin receiving proposals for its $10 billion fund. The fund will go to poor nations preparing for some of the worst impact of climate change. However, the revelation that Japan used its last round of climate finance provisions to fund a coal plant in Indonesia has clouded the announcement. Also, as part of the events, the UN Weather Agency says that record high ocean temperatures will make 2014 the hottest year on record, or at least among the very warmest. The group calls it evidence of a long-term trend of global warming.
Comparing January to October 2014 to earlier years, if November and December maintain the same global temperature anomaly value, the best estimates for 2014, according to this measure, would place it as the warmest year on record.
For the latest on the meetings, here's our correspondent Rael Mora.
The third day of the COP20 has started today. Hundreds of meetings and press conferences are taking place every day with the hope of coming to an agreement on how to save our planet. About 10,000 people have come from all over the world, including representatives from all nations, UN officials, non-governmental and governmental organizations, and civil society institutions. One of these institutions, the Climate Action Network, has decided to give an award for Fossil of the Day to countries that have least contributed to saving our planet. Today, the contentious issue of financing will be discussed. This is how to finance developing countries so they can do their part in saving our planet. With this information, we go back to studios.
Now to Colombia, where negotiators for the Colombian government and the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia have agreed to restart peace talks in 9 days. The dialogue had been suspended since November 16th when General Rubén Darío Alzate was taken and held by a unit of the rebel group. Darío Alzate and his companions were freed Sunday. As Charles Parkinson explains, questions still remain regarding the general's actions.
For Camilo Gonzalez, director of peace advocacy NGO Indepaz, while General Rubén Darío Alzate's weak explanation for his capture should be questioned, it should not take attention away from getting the peace process back on track and moving towards a final agreement.
It's important that it's clarified what happened in these events, but it cannot be converted into the central theme, nor become an obstacle.
A day after his release on November 30th, Alzate offered his resignation after saying he had entered an area of heavy guerrilla activity as part of a social project. He said he flouted security protocols because of a lack of trust in the military among the local community. For many observers, his explanation has highlighted problems with government policy and its insistence on maintaining hostilities.
He speaks about the lack of confidence of civil society in the armed forces, but afterwards omits the responsibility of the state and the policies of war. The state today should have another political vision, and above all should change their view on the ceasefire that they want to avoid.
With Santos announcing that he accepts both Alzate's explanation and resignation, the full truth behind what he was doing may now never be known. Though the mystery behind Alzate's capture will rightfully continue to receive significant attention, the real matter at hand now is getting the peace process back on track and moving towards a final agreement. Charles Parkinson, Telesur in Bogotá, Colombia.
To Mexico, writer Juan Villoro says that Mexico is on the verge of a major social outburst. He was referring to the 43 Ayotzinapa missing students and the corruption and reforms of the government of President Enrique Peña Nieto. Meanwhile, one demonstrator who was arrested during the ongoing protests has described the ordeal. He called it the experience one of the toughest moments of his life.
Mexico is a country which is undoubtedly going through a very deep and complex crisis, and which has to find quick solutions, but that's not the way to solve things. On the contrary, it will make it worse. Mexico is already going through a difficult situation, and it's scary that authorities make decisions like this.
And in Venezuela, hardline right-wing opposition leader Maria Corina Machado has been indicted on charges of a plot to kill President Nicolas Maduro. Corina Machado was at the forefront of major street protests against Maduro's socialist government earlier this year. She faces 8 to 15 years in jail. Venezuelan officials found emails between Machado and U.S. State Department officials discussing a plot to overthrow Maduro. Taking a look at world news, Moscow hopes that its Western partners will reconsider their policies. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Alexander Lukashenko says that Moscow will look to continue cooperation with the West.
That our relations with the West have taken on such form of late, with far fewer cooperation mechanisms still intact. We hope our Western counterparts will reconsider their ill-advised policies and decide to restore dialogue.
In Germany, protesters dropped 26 cardboard cutouts of coal-fired power plants in a domino effect in front of the Chancellery in Berlin. Protesters then burnt coal in front of Germany's central government buildings to protest the current energy policy. The protest was in front of Chancellor Angela Merkel's office ahead of a cabinet meeting over CO2 emissions. Protesters believe the government move will not be enough and have asked for 26 coal-fired plants to be shut down. To Britain, protests against university cuts continue. Students pushed a police van away from the grounds of the University of London. The students had earlier occupied a university building. The action is part of a national campaign against tuition fees and government cuts, calling for a day of occupations across English universities. We end in the art world this evening. The city of Paris is hosting an auction by works of Andy Warhol, Simon Hantai, Alexander Calder, and other artists that have never come to the art market before. The works have been shown very rarely, but they are well known. They are expected to go for millions of dollars. Plenty more on those stories and others at our website, telesurtv.net/English. For Telesur English, I'm Cody Weddle. We'll see you tomorrow.